Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're talking about this samurai right here. If you don't know what that means, this is a 12-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw from Makita on their XGT platform. And this is the second generation of this saw. Or is it? If you don't know what I'm talking about, it pretty much means Makita makes this saw on their 18-volt platform, but uses 18-volt X2 batteries to get 36 volts. A lot of people are going to say, well, the 40-volt Max platform is really 36 volts, so is there a difference between that saw and this new saw that they've come out with, right? So that's exactly what we're going to find out today. We're going to go over this saw top to bottom. You don't want to miss this. Stick with us. Alright you guys, so this right here is a 12-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw from Makita on their XGT platform. Model number on this one is GSL04. If you don't know what we were joking about earlier versus Gen 1, Gen 2, you pretty much know, for people that know Makita tools, they make an 18-volt version of this saw, or 36-volt version, but uses two 18-volt batteries in series to get 36 volts. This saw is 40-volt Max XGT platform, so you know, a lot of people are going to say it's pretty much the same saw, and they would be right. It is pretty much the same saw, but there are minor improvements that they've made on this saw with all of their infinite wisdom and feedback and stuff that they had to improve on this saw. That's why we are technically calling this the second generation of this saw, even though this is the first time this saw existed on the XGT platform, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not the video. We're going to go over super tight miters. Can you see light or slide a piece of paper through the miters? We're not going to do that, okay? So if that's what you want to know, you can turn away right now. There you go to it, okay? So without too much further ado, let's go ahead and talk about some details. We did buy this saw. Nobody sponsored this. They did not send this to us. Makita probably doesn't even know we exist. XYZ. The point is, we purchased this saw with our own monies. And with that being said, this is the second time we've had this saw in this shop. First time we've had this saw in the shop, we took it out of the box, we put it on the saw stand, we were going to use it, and the miter adjustment button lever was broken. The plastic was just broken. I don't know if it was damaged in shipping or from the factory. It doesn't look like the box was banged up by any means, so you know, it was just a defect. But the point with that video that we uploaded earlier was that's a lever that gets pressed a lot, so you think that there would be improvements made over that. Obviously, you know, Makita didn't think so, and we've had the 10-inch 18-volt version, 36-volt version of the saw, and we've used that saw almost every day, I would say, and we haven't had any issues with it. So maybe that was a fluke, you know. With that being said, just take that with the grain of salt. All right, so without too much further ado, let's get into it. So this is the 40-volt Max XGT Brushless cordless 12-inch dual bevel sliding compound miter saw with AWS capability. The model number on this one is GSL04Z. If you buy it as a kit, it will be GSL04 M1, and the kit will include a 4 amp hour battery and a charger. Whether you buy the tool as a tool only or a kit, it will also include the 12-inch miter saw blade, the vertical vise, the dust bag, and the hex wrench. This saw features a Makita-built brushless motor that delivers up to 3,600 RPMs for faster and smoother cutting performance. It will cut up to 8 inches crown molding nested and 6 3/4 inch baseboard vertical. It will also cross-cut up to 15 inches at 90 degrees. At 90 degrees, the miter saw will cut 3 5/8 by 15 inches. It has an LED light that casts a shadow line over the blade that tells you the exact cutting line. It is AWS capable to work with your AWS compatible dust extraction devices. It has the standard XGT items like outpower, outsmart, outlast. It will bevel 0 to 48 degrees in left and right directions. It will also miter 0 to 60 degrees in left and right directions. The positive stops are at 0, 15, 22.5, 30, 31.6, 45 and 60 left and right. It has extension wings that will retract for compact storage. It has soft start for smooth reaction startups and longer gear life. It is also a direct drive, meaning there are no belts involved. It has electronic brake for maximum productivity. The bevel, angle, locks, controls, and everything are at the front of the tool. That way you don't not have to reach out behind the tool by any other means. And this tool features a standard 3-year limited warranty, and the net weight with the battery will be 69.1 pounds. First thing I notice is that it does include this blade. It's a max efficiency 60-tooth blade, and this is the ATA-FR blade. What that pretty much means is alternate face raker. What that pretty much means, or the thing you really need to take away from that, it's a pretty good blade, okay? This blade is really nice. It's much better than most of the big box out there, to say all the big box store blades that you can get in the big box. I will definitely put it up there, if not better than the Diablo blade up there. Okay, so this is a really good blade, and it is 60 tooth. The fact that they include this blade out of the box instead of just some really, you know, cheap blade or whatnot, that's just something by itself. But this blade alone, if you were to buy it alone, I think the replacement one is somewhere around like 60, 75 bucks or something like that. So this is a good blade. So the way it doesn't come installed, the way you would install it is you take the hex key out of here, you loosen this whole thing comes up, and you can use the spindle lock on this back side here to put the blade on. It's pretty straightforward, you know, no surprises. That's obviously right there. So let's address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is this is a forward rail design, as you can see right here. What that pretty much means is the rails are actually permanently placed on the back of the saw, and the carriage, the miter saw carriage, slides across the rails. This is a really huge improvement, not over the Gen 1, because the Gen 1 worked exactly the same way, but this is just a different type of miter saw. So there's really 3 types of miter saws, which I would classify. There is the traditional type where the carriage holds the rails, right, and then the base of the saw kind of slides on the rails that the carriage is embedded in, right? And then there is the forward rail design, which means the base of the miter saw holds the rails, right? And this carriage slides across the rails. And then there's a third type with the, let's call it the Terminator, or the arm type, like the Delta Cruiser or the Bosch Glider, whatnot, where it doesn't have rails. It kind of just has like arms or axial arms that move in and out, right? So those are the 3 types. For the forward rail designs, I think there's roughly about 3 companies that I know make them. Makita's one, Metabo HDPT is another, and obviously Festool is the other one, right? So it's one of the few ones that do exist out there, okay? The first thing I will tell you, or anybody who gets this saw out of the box and slides it like that, they're gonna say, wow, that's really smooth. And this saw is no secret or no difference than that, right? This saw is really smooth as it slides across these rails, even though we've been using it for, you know, at least the last couple of days, if not more than a few weeks. Dust buildup and stuff like that, it still slides really smooth, okay? So that's the other thing to note there. As you can see right there, at this angle, the dust port will get caught up right here, as you can see, and if you do it enough times, eventually it'll rip. I think on a DeWalt DCS781, you probably saw it has mixed up or sliced so that it will move pretty freely. This one does not do that, okay? So while you're up here, let's talk about some of the stuff. I'm not sure if it's come out right here. This right here, not this wing bolt, but this hex bolt is actually something you would use to set the maximum depth that this blade will go down. So out of the factory, it's set pretty good. You may need to adjust it every once in a while, but I've never had to adjust it even on the previous saws that we've had. It's just never needed to be adjusted. It barely ever moves. Right next to that, you probably can't see it, but there is a wing bolt right there that you can kind of take this out, and it will give you a trenching mechanism. It's like a depth stop guide that will let you make repetitive same depth cuts as much as you wanted to. So it's kind of, you know, like a poor man's dado. The other thing to note about, you know, looking at the front here is that all the controls for controlling the miter saw, not all, almost all the controls are up front. What do we mean by that? So this right here is the miter unlock lever to a, you know, miter predetermined detent, right? So on the first time we bought this saw, this lever was broken. It kind of pivots on, it's a piece of plastic that pivots on a metal piece that's under the saw. We can go look at it later. There's another video about this. We don't need to cover this in detail, but the point is that I thought that this was a pretty big failure in design, mainly because, you know, anyone who uses the miter saw is going to be using this lever almost every day. And then to be made out of complete plastic, I think is just a really bad idea or failure on their part. But to their credit, on the XSL06, a 10-inch version of this on their 18-volt platform, I use it almost every day, and I feel like it hasn't broken yet, so there's a testament to that. Anyways, the point is, miters can easily be adjusted freely by holding this down, right? If you don't hold it down, it will lock into the next available detent right there. So that's at 45. See, it's locked in. If you wanted to go at not another positive detent, you can just put it wherever, and then you can turn this, and it will lock it from turning. Okay, so without that, you'll lock it there. If you wanted to override the detents, what you would do is you would press this down, and it will slide freely without holding that down. But what this lever here does is it pretty much forces this to stay down. Okay, so that's how that really works. So while we're here, let's talk about this miter plate here. So most people know on the 18-volt version, this plate here was made out of aluminum, or as you know, the European people call it aluminium. And that was a really bad idea, mainly because yes, aluminum is a metal, but it's very soft metal. So as you would go here and do that a lot, the aluminum will eventually wear out, and there will be too much play where sometimes you would just be able to skip over the detents. So a lot of people did not like that. They did improve that on this saw, mainly because this does not appear to be aluminum anymore. It's probably some type of stainless, and it does look pretty thick, so I do have a good feeling that's going to hold up in the long run. No problems there. So there's that. The other thing I know is here is the bevel lock adjustment. All right, so let me slide this out to, let's say, 45. So if you wanted to bevel to the left, you would just loosen this up, and then you would just be able to take this and then bevel to the left. Okay, if you wanted to bevel to the right, you could pull it to the right, but it won't go anymore because it'll just zero out at 0. And then there's a button right on the side of the saw that you can press to go to the right, but we can drill into that later. For now, I'm just gonna lock this right here. Okay, so that's what's going in up in here. This part right here will ride up in case you did need to make a more deeper cut. And as you can see, this part is cutaway right here, so that when you are cutting right here, it will give you maximum depth of cut right there. Okay, the other things to note as we are here are this miter arm, retractable arm. So this arm strips in right here, and it will tract out. The benefit to this, instead of the bar that they used to have on some of the previous models, or some models, let's say, is that this is a pretty stable base. This part is flat, and it will come out here. There are crown stop stands that you can buy as accessories. It will not include it in this kit. Whether you buy the tool as a kit or a tool only, you will not include that, and you could attach them right here. There is also a horizontal vise that you could buy as an optional accessory, kind of like this one. This is a vertical vise arm assembly that does come with the saw, kind of helps you put it here, but if you want to buy another one, that's right there. So there is that. The other thing to point out is that this is the fence, and this is a pretty tall fence that comes with, obviously, the miter saw. The one benefit to this fence, and one thing we really like about the Makita saws, is that a lot of times people will take these fences off and they'll just put them down on the ground. Some people will forget about them and lose them, but on this saw, you can just pull this up, and back here it has a little clip that allows you to hold the clip right here. That way you know where the fence is exactly at all times. It's either here or here, okay? So that's a pretty neat feature. Some saws will have just like a tether, a metal cord or something like that, so they're just here dangling. But I'm glad that they put this here, mainly because I can put this right here, all right? This right here is obviously permanently removable in case you want to do that. We'll just leave it there for now. All right, so let's take a little bit of a closer look up of the arm and the carriage, okay? So this is the carriage that slides all the way back. The way you would lock this in is you would just pull this and put it right there, and it's locked in right there. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a play right here. Sometimes I really thought it was annoying, but people that have this are going to know, or that use miter saws, a lot are going to know. A lot of times sawdust will cake up right there, and it's great that you don't have to always clean it off before you put it there and lock it in, mainly because it would be really annoying if you had to do that every time. So this one here obviously has the same type of design that the DeWalt 781 has, or I would say the DeWalt 781 has a similar type of design as this one, mainly because I think this one did it first, and this design is significantly better than just turning some bolt that holds the friction against the rail, right? So this is really nice. I do appreciate that, and then if you wanted to do that, that's going to cause a problem because, you can't go all the way back there. So this is pretty stable. Just in case you forgot how to do crown, there's a little sticker right here that will kind of remind you how to do it, but you know, I can't imagine too many people looking at that. But other than that, this part works really well right here. So while we're here, let's go take a look at some of the Dust Collective items on here. So this has a really big dust port right here, as you can see, and it has a little dust flap right here. With this saw, you would think, wow, it's got 2 dust ports for really good dust collection, and you would think, wow, this is going to be really good at collecting dust. It's going to be pretty much the same or average, almost exactly the same as the previous generation of the saw. For some reason, it has 2, but it still sometimes doesn't do super great. I would actually argue the DCS 781 with the one big one, the recently flexible one that we just reviewed with the 1 port right here, actually does a little bit better. If you know exactly how you want to make that cut to maximize dust collection, you could get away with doing really good dust collection on that saw, but you're going to have to think about how you're making cuts. Most people are not going to want to do that, so the dual dust port here helps a little bit, but I'm going to go out and say the dust collection is average. All right, so looking at the bevel stuff here. So this bevel gauge is really great, mainly because you got gray and then you got black lettering on gray. So let's talk to you about some of the bevels here. In order to do that, we'll go ahead and remove the fence on this side. We'll go ahead and put it, clip it into the bar right there. And the way you would bevel it is you would loosen this bar up here, right? And right now it is at 0, so I'm gonna press this button that will allow you to bevel to the right direction. And if you do that, right now, it's gonna go all the way to 45, mainly because I have this little lever engaged right here that pulls up this way. That lets you bevel pretty much freely across that direction. So if I wanted to go to the stops, what I would do is take this little lever and then push it this way, and then it will allow you to lock into positive detent. So right here, all right, so right now I am locked into 33.9 degrees, and as you can see, it's pretty locked in there either way. I can't go this way or that way. It is just held in perfectly right there. So if I wanted to come across out of that, I would pull this lever back out, and then I would let it set back as I pass it, and then it will next lock me in at 22.5, okay? As you can see, 22.5, I'm not coming this way or that way. So that's obviously one of the bevel locks there, and if I pull it out, it will take me past 0, and I can get back to 0 by pulling that, okay? So just to show you that in reverse, you know, I will just press this button here, and then I will go get the 22.5, still can't get out of this lever again, and then I'll pull lever 33.9, and then if I pull it again, it'll take me to 45 degrees. This saw will bevel, as you can see right here, past 45 degrees to about 48 degrees. How you would do that is you would pull the pressure off of here, and then you would pull this lever that allows you to bevel all the way to 48 degrees, okay? So that's really nice. I really don't like these positive stops too much, mainly because I'm not always using them. So what I do is I pull this lever up this way, and that way I can move freely across whatever angle I need to go to, and that's how that works, all right? While we're up here, let me see if I can give you a better view of the miter gauge here. So as you can see right here, it'll bevel all the way to 60 degrees. Right now, this wing bolt up here actually won't let me go all the way in. So that is something I did notice. If you have this wing bolt all the way out or whatnot, you can't actually get to that 60. So if I go here, now I'm right at 60. So you're gonna have to watch out for that wing bolt if you do, you know, use it without that. So 60 takes you to 45, 31.6, 22.5, 15, and obviously 0. And one thing, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to hear it, and this is definitely because it's new, but it's really tight, meaning this base that pivots, right? So take a listen. So yes, the saw is new, but even on the XSL06, the saw that we've used a lot, some of that feeling is still there. Just the fact that it does that, it kind of just screams like, you know, the tolerances are really good on this saw. All right, so this is obviously the right-hand part of the saw, you know, and there isn't too much of a difference on that side. The main real difference here is that this is the chop saw lock. So the way you would, you know, get rid of this is you just relieve pressure off of it, then you can pull that, and then it will allow you to, you know, chop saw pretty easily. You can also set this one ahead of time and then just let it lock in. That's what's really going on there. Other than that, you know, it's pretty much a brushless motor here. It'll say Makita, brushless, and all the stuff going on here. This part right here is the dust port, and they have made an improvement on the dust port, mainly because most people know the first generation one is just a friction fit, whereas this now actually has a press release lock. So if I press that, sorry, I forgot to dust that out. It will allow you to, instead of holding in there by friction fit, there is a lock, okay? So other than that, that's pretty straightforward. This hose and this thing is pretty much the same as the first version of the saw. I will go ahead and tell you, if you make a lot of cuts really fast, like if you're using like a lesser tooth blade, 40 tooth blade, let's say, and just making faster framing cuts on OSB lumber, eventually little strands will get caught in here where it'll block the dust collection. But if you just take time and just do it, you know, like a normal person would, then it won't have a problem. But I will know that right now, you know, rough cut lumber with strands will definitely clog it up if you just move fast. But other than that, that's what's really going on here. A lot of people are gonna wonder, what is this for? This right here is a button. They call it the stop carriage or the stop trigger. What that really means is you want to pull this out and it will prevent the miter saw from sliding all the way back. So there's about an inch that it puts right there. The main reason they put that there is they say you can put other blades on this saw. They may not always be 12-inch, and then you may need to adjust how far it will cut back. So as you can see right here, if I put this fence back up, the blade will cut right here, technically pass right here, right? Like up here, so you can get this full depth of cut right here. You don't have to have that out in order for it to work, right? So nobody ever really uses this, but it's to make micro adjustments using that lever on the other side or that bolt on the other side in case you put a different size blade on there and you need to move it around just a little bit to figure out, you know, at what blade will I need to cut or adjust to get the full depth of cut. To give you a closer look at the button, this button is right here. As you can see, right here is where it like stops in. You can pull this button all the way out or just disengage it by pulling it up and locking it up front like so. So this is obviously the top part of the saw. It's got the safety right here. You press this and you're able to pull the trigger. Right now there's no battery, so there's that. There's also a little hole right here so you can put in the lock in case you didn't want, you know, some kids or whatnot to go around pressing this button. This right here is the L.E.D shadow light. It's interesting mainly because you have to turn it on and off. When you pull the trigger, right, it will not automatically turn on. Some saws will do that. This one is not. You have to tell it, I want the light on, and then it'll come on, and after a while it'll eventually shut off. It's not like the previous version where they had a laser, and the laser you would just forget that it was on. You would come back the next day and it's like, oh crap, I left the laser on all day. This one will turn off after enough time. This button right here is for your AWS capable device. So most people know AWS capable device, as soon as you pull the trigger, you know, the vacuum and dust extraction will start up. But if for whatever reason you need to clean around the saw, mainly because, you know, dust collection isn't that great, you can just press the button and then the vacuum will kick on, and then you can, you know, do your vacuuming and then hit the button again and it'll turn off. And the AWS port for that is right here. It does not come with a port. It does not come with a chip. You have to obviously buy that one separately. But that's really how that stuff really works. Just go ahead and show you how easy this arm is to move up and down, right? Go ahead here. Yes, it's a little bit stiff mainly because it's new, but it does work pretty well right there. Let's see if we can go ahead and show you the shadow line. Right, the light did not come on. The way you would engage the light is you go and you press this button right up here, and then you can see right down here the light is on, and after a while it will automatically turn off. All right, so this is obviously the back part of our saw. There's really nothing to look at except for this arm. The back part is plastic. This arm is here, and here is that carriage stop lever in case you ever did need to use it. I guarantee most people probably never end up using that ever. There is a little foot back here in case you did put it, you know, not on a stand and just up against a flat surface. It helps prevent the miter saw from tipping backwards. I would actually really be surprised if somebody had it really tipping forward or reverse in either direction, mainly because this base is really big and it's really heavy, such that, you know, it's a really stable saw regardless of where in the world you have it. All right, so let's check the miter accuracy out of the box, because I guarantee someone's going to ask. So we've had this off for a couple weeks. We've definitely used it a little bit, like quite a bit, but we haven't made any fine-tune adjustments. All right, so let's go see how the miter accuracy out of the gate, just pull out this Stabila Tech 700. And as somebody in the comments pointed out on one of the videos, we'll pull this arm out a little bit such that the teeth that are on this blade will be out against this edge on both sides of the edge. That way we can say this is measuring against here, giving you the perfect measurement. So put it here right against the blade, we'll press it down, and we'll push it that way. That way we push the force in and hold pressure down, and then we will move this out. And as we do that, let me pull this back out and push it back here against the blade. We'll use this hand here, hold it that way as we're putting pressure into that corner, and then we will measure right here. So that's zeroed out there, zeroed out here. Let's see if we can lock this. It's going to be a little bit hard at that angle, so we'll try to do it without any movement. As you can see right there, it was right about 90 to 89.9. It's fluctuating between 89.9 and 90. So that's really good out of the box. Someone's going to ask, well, how is it if you pull the carriage all the way out? Well, let's find out. So pull the carriage all the way out. Let's take this out, put it right here against the blade. Both teeth, the edge is on both outer part of the teeth. Push it up right here. As you can see, we move it up right here. We are going to be right around. Pull this out. We are right here at 90 degrees on the money. So this is a really good and accurate saw right out of the box. As you would imagine, it is pretty stiff. So now let's say, how are the positive detents here structured? Let's go ahead and just move this right out to maybe, let's go all the way to 45, since, a lot of people like 45. It's going to be interesting to see if we can get this measured perfectly. Let's go ahead and pull this out just a little bit, right? So that both edges of this edge will be against the outer edge of the carbide teeth. And then we put this right here. And as we go and push down on it and push it into this corner, we want to make sure we line up right here at this angle. I can tell right now just by looking at the blade is flexing. So we want to put pressure off of this blade, right? And now to pull it back and then push it back just a little bit such that we are on the blade but not pressing against the blade, because I guarantee you that is how it flexes, okay? So let's see if we can lock this down. As we lock this down and pull it away, obviously 90 plus 45 is going to be 135. So right here at 134.9, that's actually really, really close. I guarantee it's probably a little bit of flex here or some type of flex with this blade. You could even see we left a part of the mark of this Stabila angle right here. So it's really close, 34.9. That's pretty much on the money. All right, let's see if we can check the accuracy of the bevel out of the box. We've had it for a while. We haven't adjusted it yet. We've just been using it as is out of the box. So let's take this angle finder. Let's turn it on. And then let's see if we can zero this out. Make sure when you watch other people do this, make sure they're zeroing it out across the base. As you can see here, my floor is not level. Even though this is a different miter saw on a different miter saw stand, it is still off by like 0.4 degrees on this floor. So let's zero this out. All right, so now it's 0 to this base. Right now, as you can see back there, it's at the straight 90. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like here. Hopefully you can see that from this angle. Right there it says 90 degrees. All right, so let's see what happens if we pull the miter arm or carriage all the way out. If we pull the carriage all the way out, it is still exactly at 90 degrees. So that's good. That's exactly what you want. Actually, it's fluctuating there between 89.9 and 90, but that seems to be, right about right on the money. So let's see what happens if we lift the carriage up, the chop saw all the way up, while we keep this level there at the bottom. Not sure you can see it on the screen, but as you can see right there, it is still 90 degrees. So that's good. So let's take this back, put this back here at 90. Let's lock this in. And then let's go see what the bevel angles are out of the box with the positive stops, right? So go ahead and unlock this a little bit. I want to make sure the positive stops for the bevel is engaged by bringing that lever down. And then as you saw, we already unlocked it. So let's hit the first bevel. But in order to bevel to the right, we're going to need to unlock the bevel so we can bevel to the right. And as you can see, we are going to positive bevel stop back there at 22.5. So this should be if it's accurate, 22.5 should be somewhere around 67.5, I believe. So let's see if we can get to 67.5. And as you can see right here, we're at 67.2. What happens if we pull the carriage all the way out? If we pull the carriage all the way out, right now it's still at 67.2. So it's off by about 0.3 degrees if we're believing in the accuracy of this digital angle finder, okay? Let's see if we can get out of this bevel and go to the next bevel stop, right? So we'll go to 33.9. 33.9 should bring us to about 56.1 here. 90 minus 33.9 should give you 56.1. Right now we are at 55.7. So we're not exactly on the money. We're off by just a hair. And if you wanted to fiddle around with it, we could, do this and see what happens. See if that changes it at all. We're still right at 55.7. So we're off by a little bit. If we pull the arm all the way out, what does it look like? We're still right at 55.8. So 55.7 or 8, depending on which way you look at it, right? So not exactly on the money. Let's go ahead and pull this, where is it? This positive bevel stop out and take it to 45. And obviously at 45, we should be at 45. So right now we're at 44.8. Let's pull this arm all the way out. You probably can't see it on the camera, but right there it says 44.8. Someone's gonna say, well, maybe it needs a little bit of micro adjusting, so let's go ahead and move this around. Let's drop it all the way again. Let's move this around too, just in case someone's gonna say, oh, it's not perfect. Right now it's gonna say 44.9. That's pretty close. If we move this arm all the way out, you can't read it right there, but it says 44.9. So it's close to 45 degrees if you will work with us on that, all right? So now let's put this positive bevel stop all the way up so that we can engage this lever, which pulls it to 48 degrees, okay? So if we pull this lever and let it drop, it should be right about 42 degrees, because if you think 90 minus 48 would be 42. So we are right now at 41.9. right, out of the box. And if we move the carriage all the way out, we are still at 41.9. Let's get rid of some of this glare. 41.9, you probably can't read it, but that's exactly what it says, 41.9. Push it all the way in, we are still at 41.9. So it's very close out of the box, and you could definitely get it there with a little bit of fine tuning, but it's not exactly on the money out of the box. All right, so let's see if we can go ahead and talk about some of the cutting capacity. I'm gonna tell you right now, all the cutting footage for this is gonna be right at the beginning of the video or right at the end, towards the end scene or whatnot. So if you wanna check out the cutting footage, go ahead and check that out. But for right now, let's talk just a little bit about cutting capacity. As you can see right here, this part is raised up right here so you can get that extra cutting capacity. This right here is a 2x8, pretty much framing lumber 2x8. And it can cut this right here, tall this way up against the fence if you did want to do that. So if you can cut a 2x8, it's not exactly 8 this way. Everybody knows that. Anything you're trying to cut, like baseboard that is smaller than a 2x8, you can definitely cut up against the fence. Yes, I know a lot of people cut crown nested and stuff like that, and there are accessories that you can buy to hook onto these hooks to help you cut nested crown. Once people don't want to cut it upside down, yeah, sure, that worked for you. But the point is, if you're wondering if it can cut a 2x8 up against the fence, the answer is yes. If for whatever reason you need to cut bigger, the obvious answer is lay it down and you'll be good. All right, so that's what you get with this saw. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the key features between the Gen 1 and Gen 2 of this saw, as we talked about earlier, because a lot of people are going to want to know. First difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2 is that, one, this has a stainless miter gauge, whereas the Gen 1 had aluminum. Second difference is, or upgrade is, instead of the lasers, they put an L.E.D shadow line system on there. That's the thing. The other difference here is that the dust port is now positive clip instead of a friction fit. Other than that, the saw is pretty much exactly the same as you would imagine. They've been making these miter saws for a long time, and they haven't made too many more upgrades. And I'm gonna probably assume Makita has probably somehow made the saw more powerful than the 18x2 X2 version. But with the lumber and stuff that we're cutting these days, especially with the quality of the blades, it's gonna be a little bit hard to tell just a small difference in that power. So those are the three main differences with that, okay? All right, so a lot of people are gonna say, Makita's making miter saws for a long time, but for some reason, they can't figure out how to build the miter saws correctly or properly. And that may be true, and I'm gonna go out here on the limb and say, That's probably true, mainly because the first one that we got in this shop was broken out of the box, defective. And I don't really know tell you about that. It was just defective, and that was just a hassle. We hit the box up, we had to go get it exchanged. Now we have this one, and we've been using this one for a couple days, a couple weeks actually, and it seems to work just fine. And to their defense, the XSL06 and XSL04 that we have, the one that we use all the time, that same lever was built exactly the same way, almost every day of use, and it hasn't broken. Okay, so there is that. So with that being said, let's go out and see if we can answer a few questions. Would we go out and buy this saw again? If you didn't catch it earlier, we did buy this saw with our own monies, and I'm gonna tell you right now that was really painful, mainly because it's just really expensive. So this saw right now as a tool only will cost you somewhere around $1,200, $1,200 to $1,400, and if you buy it as a kit, it will be somewhere around $1,400 to $1,600, I believe. Depending on when you buy it, what retailer and sales and stuff you kind of find, it's obviously going to change, but just assume tool only going to be somewhere between $1,200 to $1,400, all right? And that is not cheap. That's actually probably the most expensive cordless 12-inch dual bevel compound miter saw you could buy. The things that are going to be in that class are going to be the new Capex. Obviously, Festool released a new Capex, so if you're into that thing, you could probably buy that. So the answer to the question, would I go out and recommend you buy this saw? That question is going to be, if you really enjoy working with your hands and you really like the feel of quality tool and you just love using it and stuff like that, then the answer is yes, and if you're in this platform. If you just need a traditional miter saw to, just do rough work, right? Framing work or stuff like that, then I would say probably not, mainly because of that cost factor. If cost is not a factor in your purchasing decision, then yes, definitely go buy the saw. I would highly recommend it. One of the first things I immediately thought when you first pull the trigger and make your first cut is, wow, that thing is smooth. And I'm gonna tell you right now, off the back, out of any miter saw that we've used so far to this date, this is probably the smoothest miter saw that you ever use in terms of power and glide. That to aside, there is no competition in terms of feeling of refinement, trueness, and power. You get this. You do a little bit of micro adjustment and you'll get that perfect accuracy tuned in, and you will be gold. You will be good for a long time. So if that's what you want, then go for it. The answer to, would I go out and buy this tool again? For me, personally, the answer is yes. The main reason the answer is yes is mainly because, one, we have a lot of XGT tools and we are heavily already invested in the Makita platform. And two, we are that type of person, when we are using the power tool, we love the feedback, feel, and quality that you feel in terms of refinement, power, and smoothness, okay? But, we're on the side of, we're gonna buy a tool and we're gonna use it for a long time. We're gonna keep it for pretty much forever until, another reason comes out to end or upgrade, right? So we are that person. But if you are not that person, I would not recommend you go buy this. There are much more value-oriented or more effective-oriented options out there, right? So let's talk about that. You could get the brand new DeWalt DCS781, which is the second generation flexible 12-inch miter saw, the one we just reviewed in the miter saw series before this one. And that saw has, increased dust capacity, it's a 12-inch, dual bevel sliding, all that stuff. And it has the same shadow line type system. The only personal downside of that saw is that it has the rails embedded on the carriage, so it's your traditional style. And for some reason, I just personally don't like that. But that saw, tool only, you could get for right around somewhere between $500 to $600. And everybody's gonna say, how do you get that for $600 or $500? It's $599. You can buy it on sales and stuff like that, and you can also go find like a 20% off coupon. All kinds of stuff that you could do to get that thing for lower. So the point is, between $500 or $600, you can go get that saw. You can get two of those saws actually for the price of one of these. So, if you need a lot, that's probably the one you want to go with. The other option is the Bosch 12-inch glide saw. So we do have that saw, and I can tell you right now, we like using that saw. That saw is also just as heavy as this saw. This saw has a really wide base, and it's built pretty tough, and you feel that sense of refinement. The Bosch one is almost the same way in terms of, feel, quality, and the big roughness of it and stuff like that, right? The one downside to the Bosch glide saw is that it just does not have that feel of power and refinement that you need, right? There's two big things. One, it it is on running a single 18-volt battery, and even if it's a Pro Factor battery, whether you use 8 or 12, it just does not have that oomph or power to cut through large lumber, especially at, let's just say you're doing a compound 45 and 45, right? That's a really hard saw, cut for a miter saw, and that cut is just hard for that saw. If you're doing stuff just like, you know, trim work or flooring or stuff like that, then you're gonna be fine with that saw. That saw was great. Highly recommend you go get that saw, right? But if you need to do other stuff like, you know, cutting laminated or engineered wood, large cuts, or, you know, compound cuts, that saw is really going to be, it's going to be really difficult to recommend that saw, mainly because of the power or the lack of power, let's say. That saw, you know, it'll have a sensor refinement, but it's nowhere close to the refinement that you feel from using this saw, okay? The other option is you could buy the Milwaukee M18 12-inch saw. Personally, I don't have the saw, but I have seen other people around me that have the saw and use it. And, you know, I don't really have any qualms with that saw, and I don't own it, so I can't tell you my personal opinion too much of that saw. The other option is you could get the 18x2 version of this saw. And that, the Makita 18-volt version, 36-volt version of this saw takes 2 batteries. I can tell you, it'll be somewhere around $700 to $800 depending on when and how you can get it, on what kind of sale and stuff like that. So that's roughly around $400 to $500 less than this saw. And if you are already on the 18-volt system, the LXT system of the saw, you could definitely get away with buying that saw versus this saw if you can deal with the laser on that saw. If for whatever reason you can't deal with the laser and you need the shadow line system, you need to get this saw. But, you know, that's going to be the $400 or $500 question for you. You know, there are other improvements that we talked about earlier that, you know, may or may not count. The aluminum miter angle stuff, it technically wasn't a problem for me, mainly because, you know, we kind of I don't want to say baby, but, you know, we take care of our equipment when we use it, so it generally seems to last pretty well. So, you know, that's may or may not be an issue for you. There's other stuff that you could talk about or differences, but, you know, the main difference there is really going to be the L.E.D, because it does port capture system, all that stuff. You know, you can actually just find ways, adapter and stuff like that, and figure it out. So there's that. So if you aren't on the 18-volt LXT platform, go get this saw. If you're on the 40-volt Max, you want the latest, greatest, and the most finest refueling saw, go buy this saw. That's all there is to it, okay? If you're gonna ask, do you wanna buy this saw or the Capex system? I just don't know. I just don't have the Capex. I've never personally invested in that tool. I think when we were first buying miner saws, we know we wanted to buy a cordless one, and they just didn't have a cordless version of it. So I can't tell you personally. But, like I told you, would I go out and buy the saw again? Short answer, yes, go buy the saw, okay? So what can we say about this tool? So Makita, in all of their infinite wisdom and all their infinite experience, the people that build their own tools and motors and stuff like that, they built a pretty solid tool, right? Everybody's going to say, oh, well, it's not a brand new tool. They pretty much took the old version and then made minor improvements. Hello, you know, that's generally how big companies work. Unless they have a product that is just so bad, they just go back to the drawing board with it. Usually companies will take what they have, make minor improvements, and make it better. And that's pretty much exactly what they did with this saw. And I say minor improvements, they've made very, very minor improvements, okay? Does it, you know, justify the cost of $1,200 saw? That's only up to you, because, you know, that value is going to be in the eyes or the eyes of the beholder, right? So that's going to be up to you. All I can say is I really enjoy using this saw. I really hope that this saw will treat us good for years to come, just like our other saws have. And we really enjoy using it. So that's all I can really say. Otherwise, hope this video helped you guys out. We'll throw all the cutting footage and cutting capacity and stuff like that all on the screen or at the end of the video. So if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, have a great day. Get back to work, and we'll see you guys next time.